Ashley Pond Jr., the founder of the Los Alamos Range School, first came to New Mexico after contracting typhoid while serving with Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders. Pond had grown up in Detroit, Michigan, where his father was a noted attorney once considered for the U.S. Supreme Court. After recovering his health on a ranch near Catskill, New Mexico, Pond dreamed of giving that same opportunity to boys who consistently fought bronchial problems as he had done in his younger years. Pond became a believer in the health benefits of clean air and the outdoor life, and in 1904 he built his first range school in Shoemaker Canyon, east of Watrous, New Mexico. Unfortunately, that first attempt at founding a school was washed away in the Great Flood of 1904. In frustration, Pond sold the land and returned to Michigan. However, the call of the West was still strong, and Pond eventually returned to New Mexico, and with 4 Detroit partners, he bought the Ramon V. Hill land grant. The remote land of the Pajarito Plateau was difficult to reach in 1914. Despite that difficulty, Pond and his associates started an elite hunting and fishing venture called the Pajarito Club in what is today known as Pajarito Canyon. The Pajarito Plateau and its canyons were still an untamed land. Though it did attract some guests, the Pajarito Club failed in 1916. Pond settled his wife and children in Santa Fe, but kept his dream alive by buying out a homesteader named Harold Brook and founding a ranch school on the plateau. Pond hired a former ranger and Boy Scout leader from Santa Fe as director of his new school. A.J. Connell would remain the director throughout the school's 25 years of existence. In the early years of the school, Ed Fuller of Michigan, a Pond family friend, helped with financial support and moved to New Mexico to join the staff. He died at an early age, but Fuller Lodge remains as a tribute to Ed and his family. The early years of the school were rugged, but enrollment gradually increased. The students of 1922 were a ragtag group of 19 boys, shown here with A.J. Connell and Headmaster Fayette Curtis at the end of the rows on the left side, and Masters Lawrence Hitchcock and Farmer Church sit on the right side. The first major building constructed at the school was called the Big House. The Big House contained master's quarters, a dormitory for the boys, and the library shown in this photograph. Along the outside of the building were sleeping porches where the boys slept year-round, a concept that went along with Pond's plan to improve their health. On nights when it rained or snowed, canvas curtains were pulled over the open screened windows. Each boy was assigned a horse when he arrived at the school. It was his responsibility to care for the horse and its tack during the school year. Some of the boys had never ridden before arriving at the school. Learning to ride and care for the horses helped them understand responsibility, a major lesson emphasized at the ranch school. One of the early log and stone buildings was built by Master Farmer Church for his wife, Peggy Pond Church, and their growing family, which eventually concluded 3 sons. This building still stands today, though additions were added through the years. Another early building was the school's trading post, where students bought their uniforms, books, outdoor equipment, and such. Their uniforms were designed along lines of those worn by the Boy Scouts. Basic supplies and food were also stocked at the trading post. The crown jewel of the Range School campus, Fuller Lodge, was opened in 1929. The large downstairs areas were used as a dining room and also used for dances, plays, and celebrations. Rooms for masters and the director were on the upper levels. Fuller Lodge is now listed in the National Register of Historic Places. Boys waited in the entry room for the dining room doors to open and meals to be served. Dining etiquette was part of the expectations. A master was assigned to each table on a rotating schedule, and he led the boys in appropriate conversation during the meal. Boys were required to eat all the food they were served, as each meal was nutritionally planned. Gilbert and Sullivan musicals were a highlight in many Range School years. All of the roles were taken by boys and masters, so some of them dressed as women and girls. Residents of Santa Fe, the Pueblos, and nearby towns were invited to these events. These young boys are members of Pinon Patrol. When students arrived at the school, they were placed in one of 4 patrols: Pinon, Juniper, Fir, or Spruce. The patrols represented maturity and physical development rather than age, with the boys of Spruce Patrol being the most developed. In the first years of the school, this small body of water was called the Duck Pond. But in the course of time, a master who loved ponds dubbed it Ashley Pond, and the name stuck. In the winter, ice was cut from Ashley Pond and stored in sawdust in the school's ice house. The frozen surface was also used for ice hockey. Volleyball was a popular sport during some years. Notice the dog watching from the right side of the court. Boys were allowed to bring their dogs to school for the year, provided they assumed responsibility for the dog's care. As seen in the photos of this school brochure, tennis was also popular with the boys. The students decided which sports would be offered each year. So some years featured more uncommon sports like fencing, along with the popular basketball and baseball. The Arts and Crafts Cottage was added to the log and stone buildings in 1932, adding classrooms and specialties such as a woodshop and darkroom. This photograph shows a classroom in the Arts and Crafts Cottage, as well as a typical class size. Individual attention was one of the advantages offered by the Range School. Pack trips were a part of summer camp activities. Summer camps were offered most years, but not all, during the life of the school. Some boys were both students and campers, while others came only to the summer camp. Pack trips ventured to several locations in the Jemez Mountains, with the longest summer trip lasting 3 weeks. The Chihuahueños site was one of the favorites each summer. This photograph of the boys atop the San Pedro Peaks makes it clear how special the long-distance pack trips could be. At other times of the year, the terrain took on different challenges. This pack train is led by Ted Mather, the longtime wrangler at the ranch and a favorite of all the boys. Camp activities for younger boys centered around Camp Hamilton, a cabin in Pueblo Canyon. Camp May, located near the present-day Pajarito ski area, was the retreat for older boys. In the early years of the school, graduations were held in a small canyon that connects to the larger Pueblo Canyon. The boys rode their horses to the site, and visitors were transported in wagons. That adjoining canyon is still known today as Graduation Canyon. When Fuller Lodge opened in 1929, graduations were held on the portal, but the students still entered on horseback in a proud procession. The boys, family members, and other visitors looked across a beautiful lawn and all the way across the valley to the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Entertainment for the ceremony often included dancers from nearby pueblos. Adolfo Montoya was just one of several men from the valley who composed a dependable support staff for the school. The Montoya family lived in one of the log cabins provided by the range school, and the Montoya descendants still live in this area. There was a community school on the plateau for the children of masters and support staff. Vences Gonzalez was a favorite with everyone on the plateau, as well as the range school boys. He managed the trading post and was the camp cook on pack trips. His sopapillas, cooked in a Dutch oven over a campfire, were legendary. Another person of importance to the school in its later years was Edith Warner. She lived at the Ottawee Crossing and guarded the freight delivered to the school by the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad, better known as the Chili Line. The enrollment at the range school grew from one official student in 1917 to 46 students in its later years. In the school's last year, many of the masters left for service in the military. The school's headmaster, Lawrence Hitchcock, was one of those called to duty. When the Los Alamos Ranch School was taken over by the government in early 1943, to house the Project Y segment of the Manhattan Project, Master Firmer Church attempted to keep the school going by starting the Los Alamos School in Taos, which was housed at the Sagebrush Inn. With World War II still in progress, the school in Taos attracted only 8 students in its only year of existence. After one academic year and one summer camp, the school closed for the last time. A spin-off school for younger boys was started in 1939 by Master Tommy Waring. The school began on Canyon Road in Santa Fe and later moved to Pewaukee, but it didn't succeed in the long run, closing in 1949. The Los Alamos Range School lasted a quarter of a century. In the following years, range schools lost their popularity. Whether or not our school would have survived the changing times of the 1950s, we will never know. But in these last color photos taken by Master Herbert Wallace, we see the school and the boys in the glory days. Many of the ranch school boys went on to make significant contributions to their communities and the nation. More than half of them served in World War II. Many were decorated for bravery. 9 of them that we know of didn't come home. The ranch school era is a beautiful part of our Los Alamos history, and its legacy is in our hands. It was a special time in a beautiful place. Whether we like it or not, times bring change, but memories remain.